So, you know, does anybody want to talk about why they became a filmmaker and what, you know, what you thought your prospects were at the time too? Because it was a different time than it is now.
I was trying to be an actress when I decided that I needed to be a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. Because I thought my prospects in acting were so dismal.
You could find something you could make a worse living at?
No, I had to find something where I could at least control what was on the camera.
I never set out to be a filmmaker, so it's always, I came at it from reporting. I wanted to be a journalist. And I am a journalist. I still consider myself a journalist. I happen to make films, and I've sort of fallen into this. And I can still get into a lively discussion about whether I am a journalist or a filmmaker first.
I started out at Blackside, and you know, nobody under 30 had a job that didn't have something to do with taking out the trash. You know, you know, that kind of thing. And you sat and you watched editors like Sam Pollard and Lillian Benson cut. You know, and you sat there as long as they wanted to sit there. You know what I mean? And then you put everything away after, and then you put everything away after they went home.
So they could find it the next morning. Exactly. And they better be able to find it the next morning.
Exactly.
I was thinking in my last year of school when I came down to New York and to do a job. It was like my first really kind of real job that I was going to do. I was trying to become an assistant cameraman so I could start learning how to shoot. And I come down and I meet these two guys. I meet this guy, Bobby Shepard. I meet this guy, Felipe Borrero, and they had their cases, you know, their assistant cases and their lighting cases, and everything's like in order, you know. And Bobby took me and said, "Look, if you want to assist, man, you gotta have all these tools and these things and stuff like that. You gotta keep them all together." And Felipe is like giving me lessons over here, and I'm new to the whole thing, but I was impressed by the fact that there was a community here that was bringing me in, and I think that's such an, you know, we keep talking about how, you know, how black film continues. It's about learning the craft, but also feeling that in fact you're supported, that there are people there who say, yeah, come on, young blood, you know, come on in. I want you to, you know, I want to show you what I can show you, but at the same time, I want to also take care of you, you know, because nobody's taking care of us in this business. Nobody really wants our product, and nobody really wants us around. So, you know, you want to feel like you're part. The sense of community is important too, I think.
Which is why NBPC is really important. I don't know how everybody else in this room kind of came in contact with NBPC initially and with Mabel initially, but it's one of those kind of things where, you know, I got asked to be on her panel, and you know, I love these panels because it's great. It's like detective work, you know. You do the thing like, am I really gonna be able to do this? You know, exactly. Oh, you know. And then sometimes, you know, you see the clip and you're like, oh my God, it's beautiful. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're like, I knew it. Bang down the gavel. You know, that kind of thing. But Mabel was such a great kind of, you know, presence who was around the table and only spoke when necessary. You know, come on, y'all, be right. You know that kind of thing. And her spirit and her smarts and her savvy was such a part of that process.
I remember, I think I was on Mabel's ultimate reading or panel one. She had a panel in St. John's.
Oh.
Wow. We went to Atlanta.
Never happened again. But I remember we all got there and we said, oh, this is going to be great.
Oh,
man.
yes.
We're going to be in the sun. We're going to have fun. All we saw was a hotel room. Because Mabel had us working from day to night in the panel. Because you come there and it's hard work.
See, I didn't know she took y'all to different places. I was in my apartment reading the whole stack of poetry. I was a pre-reader. I was the reader.
Mabel scared me the first time I saw her. I met her. I think I met her. It must have been at one of those PBS confabs, and I had just started to work for Frontline. And I sort of went up and said, hi, I work for Frontline. I was so proud of myself. And she looked at me like she was going to put daggers through me, first of all. And I was like, whoa, what did I say? You know, I was like, I said Frontline. Like, she looked at me and like she was going to beat me up. But then we got to know each other. we got along fine. But Mabel has always stood firm for the right of black people to tell their own stories.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm still scared of Mabel. I'm still scared of Mabel.
It's a righteous fear.
I approached Mabel very gingerly. I guess my first, film that I produced, I had a lot of problems, getting the film just through NBPC, and it was my first film, and so I struggled with just getting the film done and done in a way that NBPC approved of. I put it that way, I would get a lot of really,
tough love
and letters from NBPC about the structure of the film and some of the technical problems, with the film and things like that. And so, I was doing my best at the time, and I would get these letters like, I'm sorry, we will not be able to receive, to accept, I am a man, and I thought that these people at NBPC were like monsters, and
What I gotta do?
yeah. But then I finally got to meet Mabel, because before that time it was just like a voice, you know what I mean, or a letter, and then I finally got to meet Mabel, and when I met her, I was like, okay, so she's nice, she's not too bad, But my impression of Mabel and of NBPC was that they had very high expectations, and that they had like a standard, of quality and excellence that they wanted.
Mabel supports you even when she's not quite sure what it is you're trying to do.
Right.
Because I had done Miles Davis, I'd done Ray Charles, and I went to Mabel about George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic. And she said, why you want to do Parliament Funkadelic? What's so special about them? And by the way, ain't it time for you to do something about a woman? And finally, but Mabel put the first money in that allowed me to get more money.
I didn't know Mabel was such a hard partier.
Oh.
We went out when I first got to New York. She was like, let's go hang out. And I was like, first of all, she drinks the same kind of scotch I drink, so automatically she was my girl.
Okay.
We went over to Jimmy's Uptown. There was that Mabel was getting ready to drink me under the table. I was like, I'm sorry, girl, I gotta go home. I said, you can keep closing the bar down here, but I need the tip. Girlfriend could party.
I can remember doing that at Prize People. She'd have a party afterwards. The best party. After the ceremony.
That's right.
So we have the party afterwards, and then we decided we'd go to a club after that. And I figured, after the club, we're all going to go back and crash, No, we're going to go back to our house. Then we go back to the hotel to her room.
Right.
All night, continue to talk and hang out. And, saw the sun come up. I said, oh, man, I got to get away from these people. I can't do this every day.
No, amen.
Man.
NBPC is a place, there isn't anything that I have done that I haven't had to fight to make people understand why I was doing it. Never with Mabel, never at NBPC. I always, they were always open to, because as a filmmaker, one of the things I find most important is that I'm trying to give a window into our culture. And I've always found support for that and understanding of that at NBPC, whereas I have to, break down barriers and convince great performances why they have to do Miles Davis. That's not. I don't have to do that kind of convincing with NBPC, so that it's home.
Pieces, Mabel is always that behind-the-scenes advocate for your work. She's fighting those battles that no one's watching, no one's seeing.
That's right.
She's in the room, and and it's not a matter of whether or not she walks out of the room and the people like her.
Right.
But they respect what she's challenging them on, and she's not going to back off of that. And you could depend on that.
Yep.
And Mabel was going to be there fighting the fight for you when you weren't in the room.
That's true.
I didn't know documentary filmmakers when I was growing up. I didn't remember seeing documentary films about black people growing up. I saw NBC reports on poverty in Chicago or something like that, but I don't remember seeing black films, documentary films growing up. Since NBPC has been around, since a Black Side has been around, Firelight, places like that, you've got people coming out of these spaces who are part of a community, I mean, in an interesting way, all of us sitting around this table have had interactions with each other because we've kind of all been in the same spaces. We've kind of emerged out of the same spaces. Those spaces didn't exist before.
That's true.
You know, so there's a big change. The question is there, in my mind today, there's a tendency or an effort in this society to begin to not want to see blackness. As if, you know, it is not something that exists anymore. It's a part of some larger, we use other words to, you know, diversity, multicultural, all the other things. We don't want to talk about blackness.
Right.
And there's a real, and what it does is it denies a whole reality that is a part of America that's not going to disappear unless, of course, people begin to engage it. And black film for a long time forced that engagement.
Part of the reason why America was so unready to be able to really understand and grapple with Katrina is because they're not ready to accept the challenge of what blackness is and represents, and you know what it means really.
But this is the challenge that we face right now as black filmmakers, is to keep that question before the public, to keep the issue before, because people were made aware of something in a way there was no place to run, there was no place to hide from that truth that Katrina, you know, brought to bear. And we now have to keep people's feet to the fire.
As a community, we've got to support ourselves. You know, we have to say we're not going to support stuff that doesn't represent us, and we are going to support things that authentically represent us. You know, and I think that's it's not as simple as it sounds, you know, because in many ways, people begin to, I mean, media is such a powerful tool. It can in some way make people believe that they are things they aren't.
Yes.
You know, and I want to take people off, take the responsibility away from each and every one of us. But sometimes we can believe we are what we see all the time.
That's true.
And there's such a strong, powerful message coming from a corporate media. Now you got to counter that, and how you counter that, and bring people to believe that, to say, well, we want to, you know, we're not going to watch that, you know, those videos over there, or we're not going to buy that music over here. We're going to go here.
It's the challenge that filmmakers of color who want to create something bold and powerful, that challenge and that critique the status quo, that challenge is too great, in my opinion, you know, to the gatekeepers, you know, to the people who are in power and who are in control. So they would much rather deal with and settle for reductionist images, you know, of black people that reduce black people to just being one thing, on one extreme or the other extreme, without having to deal with the complexity of us.
When you put the real stuff out there in front of any audience, definitely a black audience, people say, you know, that kind of thing, and they recognize it, right?
Well, that's when you gotta do like Kanye West, you know what I'm saying, and just go off the script.
Fight the power.
You know, you gotta come off the script and say, you know, George Bush don't care about black people, even if you gotta stutter to get through it. You know what I mean? Even if it's not the most sophisticated, you know, analysis or breakdown. You know, you just have to say, I can't do this. You know, because if you can't do that and you can't say it, you're doing exactly what Mabel Haddock. You know, you're doing the exact opposite of what she has been doing. You know what I mean? By standing up for and speaking for and representing, you know, filmmakers of color who have something to say. If you're not willing to sacrifice something, you know, if you are in a gatekeeper position, you know, what good are you? You know what I mean? Because there are people who paved the way to get you there.
What do you tell, you know, young filmmakers who come up to you, and what do you tell them about filmmaking, and what do you tell them about what they need to be doing if they're going to have, you know, a career, a life, a hope?
I think one of the most important things for them to do is to find their voice. That's, I mean, because that's really what makes the filmmaking real. It's what makes it effective and important. And also to learn about raising money. And when you talk about raising money, I mean, we all need to look beyond the public television model.
I want them to become storytellers before they learn how to do any of all that stuff. Because if they can't tell a story, you can know how to raise the money. In fact, I know people who can raise money, but they can't tell a story. They make a film that nobody wants to see, you know? So I really focus on learning the craft of reporting and researching and storytelling. And I think that some of the craft things can be forgiven if you've got a good enough story. So that's what I tell them to focus on. And also to become, unfortunately, it's a reality that you now have to know how to shoot and edit in addition to, you know, doing the writing part, you know, and I wish it wasn't so, because I think we all do better work when we're working in the traditional way. But you have to know how to do at least one of the other three, you know, one of the other three things. You either know how to do audio, how to do camera, or how to do edit. You have to do something that'll help you save some money somewhere along the line.
I think you also want to encourage them to be artists, to see it as art, as the artistic side of it. That, you know, you do want to pay attention to. You want to ask them to walk down the street and look at shadows. You know, you want to think about. You want them to listen to things and think about pacing. You know, just to, even if they get it from listening to music. Right. But how do you identify your pace? You know. But then I think at the end, once they've gotten there, they need to be challenged, I think, to find their own truth and to be honest with that. I mean, that kind of honesty is so important. You know, if they don't connect with that, then they could be the ones out there making beautiful stuff, great films, and everything, but really messing us up, you know. Right. You know, just representing us in all kinds, you know, doing the great work. You know, it's like, oh, this is a wonderful film. You know, good craft, good work. You know, good story and everything. But it ain't us. It ain't true. You know, and I think truth is important, especially at this time.
On the path to that, and this is something somebody told me right before I graduated from college, was you got to find your filmmaking community, because you don't do these films in isolation. And we've been talking about that at you know, off and on over the course of the evening. But you know, those are the influences, particularly when you're starting out. You know, those are all the influences that you're gonna have. When I started out, I lived in a $150 a month room in an old Victorian with about 18 other people, you know, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and a lot of them were poets and writers and all very innovative people, some musicians and so forth, and we were all, you know, scrambling to pay the gas bill and the light bill, and we had shut-off notices and shut-offs in the winter and all that other kind of stuff. But we would go down to the Carpenter Center and watch, you know, French films and campy Batman movies and go hear African music, you know what I mean? Fela Kuti, you know what I mean? All of that kind of stuff, you know, and stay up at night, you know, arguing about, you know, not just intellectual stuff, but who drank your orange juice during the day, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And, you know, somebody would fall in love with somebody else this week, you know, all those kind of things, right? But it was so charged, right? And so, and like, just, it was like pulling back the catapult as far as you could in terms of, you know, in terms of your launch of ideas, right? That, yeah, and you know, I still hadn't worked through all of those ideas, you know what I mean? Those kind of things. But it also opens up your realm, your conception of what is possible. And actually, that's why I got into film in the first place, was because I wanted to do kind of stories that help people think about, expand people's idea of what was possible, right? Either in terms of what had happened already in the past, or what could happen in our present or in the future.
And the one thing that my father said to me before I quit my job was he told me that if I was going to quit my job to become a filmmaker, that I needed to be committed. You know, he said, you need to be committed to this. And that word commit and committed was like the biggest thing that I remember, you know, that anybody said to me, because I realized that it was like, you know, failure was not an option. I had to be committed to making a film if I was going to call myself a filmmaker. You can't call yourself a filmmaker if you don't make films. You know what I mean?
Amen.
You know, you have to be out there, you know, trying to make a film or making a film, in my opinion, in order to call yourself a filmmaker. And then another thing, Stanley Nelson said to me when I went to his office for the first time. He told me his story about being a filmmaker and what, you know, what he had to do in order to get to where he was. And he told me that he decided that he was not going to drive a cab, you know. He wasn't going to do, you know, he wasn't going to sell incense on the street or anything like that. He was going to be a filmmaker, no matter what.
Right.
told me not to drive a cab. You know what I mean? Because all of a sudden one day you'll be a cab driver,
Right.
you know, instead of a filmmaker.
Right.
I think I would just wither and die if somebody told me that I could never make another film again. You might as well just put me in the cryogenic freeze and wake me up when I get to make another film.
And you say you're not a filmmaker, a journalist?
You gotta do it. You just can't. You do it because you can't do nothing else. It's like why do writers write?
Right.
Or why do songwriters write songs?
Right.
You know, because you'll die if you do anything else.
Right.
You know.
Right.
It's like,
Mabel, you have been the guiding light on so many wonderful, wonderful projects that I have had the great opportunity to be a part of. And you, your vision, and NBPC have inspired me to work on films that challenge the status quo and really have viewers think outside the box. Thank you and best of luck on your next phase.
Thank you, Mabel, for your powerful vision, your courage to fight our battles, and your desire for us to be the best filmmakers possible so that we can share our stories to the world. You are a beacon, and I'm excited to see where you're going to shine your light next. Forever yours.
Mabel Haddock. I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you've done for us as a community of filmmakers, as television viewers, and really as citizens of the world. Your guidance, your temperament, your vision of what we can be as artists, of what we can be as citizens has really influenced several generations of filmmakers, and you've influenced me coming up as a young person becoming a filmmaker, and your inspiration will continue to influence others. So thank you for your gentle voice, your very charming laugh, and your warm hand on the shoulder of so many filmmakers. So good luck, and you are always with us. Thanks, Mabel.
Mabel, thank you so much for being such a trailblazer and cutting a path for all of us over the years. Your support and love has meant so much to all of us in the industry. We could never repay you. I wish you much success and love in all that you do in the future.
Hi, Mabel. For many of us, NBPC was the first monies in for our projects. It not only gave us a financial start, but it validated our ideas. Thank you so much, NBPC. Thank you so much, Mabel, and good luck to you in this next stage of your life.
Move on, side to side.